Ready, Jeremy?
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, I'd like to call the village board meeting to order for Tuesday, November 23rd. Roll call, please.
President Karnowski,
Here.
Trustee Paul,
Here.
Trustee Kubacki,
Here.
Trustee Zerbal,
Here.
Trustee Krieger,
Here.
and Trustee Flukie.
Here. Please stand for the pledge.
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And please remember all of our men and women throughout the world in uniform, and especially all of the people with the tragedy that happened down in Waukesha. So I have no changes to the agenda. I need a motion to approve.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Action on the open and closed minutes from the October 26, 2021 meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve those minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Comments from the public must be limited to items not on the agenda. Must state your name and address. You are limited to 5 minutes. The board's role is to listen and not discuss the item. Personnel issues cannot be discussed nor individuals named, and the board is not able to take action at this meeting. Is there anybody who'd like to talk on items not on the agenda? Moving on. Written communications or announcements. I have one announcement. Unfortunately, in the village, we lost a long tenured employee that was here for many, many years. She served with Tracy, Steve, Doug, a lot of people that have worked here at the village. And she was a great Ashwaubenite and a great spokesperson for the village, and she will be truly missed, and served with Rex for many years, and that's Patty, and we all miss her. So just wanted to mention that. Does anybody else have any written communications or announcements? Okay, moving on. Number 8, action on consent agenda. Action on operator licenses. Action on the change of agent, Lakes Venture LLC, DBA Fresh Time Farmers Market, Benjamin Kolka. General fund financials, October year-to-date, the investment report, and budgeted expenditures. If there's nothing anybody would like pulled off, I need a motion to approve.
I just have one question in the expenditures area, just a curiosity question. What is iSolve Inc.?
iSolved is essentially our payroll system. So it is our payroll software that processes payroll and issues payment. So if there's a large expenditure through iSolve, it's related to 2 things for this past month. One, the settlement that we had recently with Mr. Schermitzler, and then also our payroll for the month.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Question on item B. Is that just a change of ownership due to the change of that liquor license change?
I believe it's, oh, go ahead, Chris.
It's just a change of agent. So the person that oversees the liquor license, they got somebody different
Okay,
to do that job.
very good.
Okay. Anything else or a motion to approve?
If there's no other questions, I'll move to approve the action on consent agenda.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 9, public hearings. 9A, public hearing regarding ordinance number 011-4-21, amending the PUD for Alden Station parcels VA-1555, VA-1556, and VA-1557. Aaron?
The requested PUD amendment is to allow for a maximum height increase from 60 feet to 65 feet for the listed 3 parcels to accommodate the development of the condominiums on those parcels. You may recall, for those of you on Site Plan Review Committee, the first condominium went through site plan review, located at the, right at the corner there, at the confluence of Ashwaubenon Creek and the Fox River. A condition of approval of the Site Plan Review Committee was that the PUD is amended to increase the maximum height from 60 feet to 65 feet, again, to accommodate the maximum height of the condominiums.
Okay, is there anybody here who would like to speak for or against this item? Anybody here who would like to speak for or against this item? Anybody here who would like to speak for or against this item? Okay, I need a motion to close the public hearing.
Move to closed.
Second.
Motion and a second to close that public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. 9B, public hearing regarding ordinance number 011-5-21, amending the approval PUD for wall signage at 2465 Marina Circle, parcel VA-1404. Aaron.
The requested PUD amendment is for the Marina Circle office building that was just recently constructed on the riverfront. They do have 2 primary tenants for the property. As you can see on the rendering, it is RBC Wealth Management and Fincantieri Marine Group. Consistent with the desires of the lessees, they would like to have signage on the screening around the top of the building. It would be on the east, west, and south elevations. Under our code, we do allow for 60 square feet of wall signage on multi-tenant buildings. In this case, the requested RBC shield on the south elevation is 62.43 square feet. RBC Wealth Management east and west elevations, so again, viewable from 172 heading eastbound and westbound, 144.89 square feet each. And Fincantieri Marine Group east and west elevations, 130.5 square feet each, 2 signs again. As noted in the staff report for reference, the Merrill Lynch signage that's existing on the other office building on the riverfront on the east and west elevations are approximately 168 square feet each. So this does fall below the existing signage on the other building.
Okay. Is there anybody here who would like to speak for or against this project? Anybody here who would like to speak for or against this project? Anybody here who would like to speak for or against this project? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Move.
Motion and a second to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 9C, public hearing regarding ordinance number 011-3-21, rezoning parcels VA-228-20-7, VA-228-20-5, and VA-228-20-6, 2300 Block South Ridge Road from B2 General Business to R2 Two-Family Residence. Aaron.
Thank you. The proposed rezoning is for the identified 3 parcels at the corner of South Ridge Road and Bel Air Court. They are currently zoned B2 General Business. The request is to rezone them to R2 Two-Family Residence. This is at the request of the property owner due to market demand as he sees.
Okay, is there anybody here who would like to speak for or against this project? I would like to say I did get a text message from a resident who lives right behind those parcels. He was not feeling well tonight, so he did not attend the meeting, but he wanted me to let everybody know that they are very concerned about stormwater management on Bel Air Court flowing towards Hawk Street, and also that they would like all of the duplexes if it's R2 zoning, to look nice, because there are some that aren't as well kept. So, that's what I got. If there's anybody else who would like to speak for or against this project? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second to close this public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 9D, public hearing for the 2022 Village of Ashwaubenon proposed budget. Anybody would like to speak for or against our budget? Anybody like to speak for or against the budget? Anybody like to speak for or against the proposed budget? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, action items. 10A, action regarding ordinance number 011-4-21, amending the PUD for Alden Station parcels VA-1555, VA-1556, and VA-1557. Aaron.
As noted during the public hearing, this is to increase the allowable maximum height from 60 feet to 65 feet to accommodate the maximum height of the condominiums proposed for those 3 parcels.
Okay, any questions, comments, or I'll entertain a motion?
There's no questions. I'll move to approve the Aaron Station parcels. 3 VAs that Mary will mention again.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second regarding the ordinance number 011-4-21. Any more comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 10B, action regarding ordinance number 011-5-21, amending the approved PUD for wall signage at 2465 Marina Circle, parcel VA-1404. Aaron.
As noted during the public hearing, the request is for the identified signage with the listed square footage. I did reach out to the owner of the Mansell Flats apartment building to get his thoughts on the proposed signage, since it is next door. He is supportive of the proposal, and he wanted to make sure that that was conveyed to the board. In terms of Site Plan Review Committee and Plan Commission, both recommended approval at their respective 11/2/2021 meetings.
Okay, any questions, comments?
At site plan, we had a discussion on the lighting on that south sign. That area's been known to have a light issue since the ground was broke on that property with billboards. We made a clarification in there to make sure that if a tenant would complain that that light could be dimmed, which I believe the property owner had no problem in looking at if there was a complaint. As of right now, there isn't. Well, signing up, of course, there's none, but in the event that there would be, we will take a look at that. Other than that, there's no problems at all. Well underneath the square footage of the property to the west there, so. No more questions. I'll move to approve the signage on Marina Way, parcel VA-1404. I'll save you the time, Mary.
I'll second it.
And I have a question. Are the lights on the signs going to be on like from dusk to dawn? Are they going to go off at 10 at night, or what is the timing for those lights?
I'll refer to the ownership group. Scott, if you wouldn't mind going to the microphone to answer that question.
Could you state your name and address for the record, please?
Hello, my name is Scott Bertrand. I'm with Elevate 97, representing the ownership group for the signage. As far as the hours, operating hours, we can adjust that via a timer to be dusk to dawn, if it would, whichever would be most accommodating to the municipality, what you would want. We have full range on that. Again, we can adjust it either using a photo eye sensor or put a timer right with the direct electrical.
What
Either
is
way.
your tenants asking for?
I'm sorry?
What are your tenants asking for?
They have not asked on the lighting, when it would be and when it would not be. Typically, usually it will run from dusk to dawn.
Typically, you're right, yes.
was wondering,
I would say dusk to dawn would be the way to go till something happens. If we get a complaint, we'll have to come back to you.
Yeah, that's very reasonable, absolutely.
Because like I say, there's been an issue because of lighting. Well, I don't see a problem there, but in the event there would be, you'd hear from us real quickly.
Yes, absolutely.
what about the south-facing light? I mean, that's facing towards the residents that are there. Having that one go off at like 10 o'clock and maybe the rest of them dusk to dawn to start?
I think that's up to the complaint if we get one. The signs are above the height of the apartment home, and they're set back on the ceiling or the roof of the building, so I don't see where there's going to be a big problem with that. But, the only reason I made that comment at site plan is because you never know what a tenant's going to say.
Yes.
I guess, Tony, could we, if we're approving it with dusk to dawn right now, can we go back in the future and say, we've had concerns, we want these off at 10 o'clock? Is that permissible then? Or if we approve it here, does that come back to village board for setting the timing on it?
It is a PUD, so it probably, I would think, that would have to come back. I don't mean to be taking Joel's thunder on it, but, we have some significant lighting out there already. It is a commercial entity right along Highway 172. There are others out there. If it becomes a problem, then I think we bring it back. And if you're willing to modify or amend as appropriate based upon complaints we receive, I guess I'm willing to go dawn to dusk to start off with, based upon whatever else we have out there. There's pretty intensive development in that location with other signage that's pretty significant as well. So, and when I say significant, I don't mean overly obtrusive. I think I don't have a problem with it.
I would agree. I think it would need to come back to board.
Also, there's a lot of land out there to be developed yet, so who knows how right that's going to get.
Okay, does that satisfy everybody or more concerns? Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 011-5-21 with dusk to dawn. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Action regarding ordinance number 011-3-21, rezoning parcels VA-228-20-7, VA-228-20-5, and VA-228-20-6, 2300 block South Ridge Road from B2 General Business to R2 Two-Family Residence. Aaron.
Just to update the board, I did receive a phone call from the applicant about 3:30 today, requesting the board table this item until the December meeting. He did receive another offer on the property, and he'd like to evaluate that development proposal in the next couple of weeks.
Move to table.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to table. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item is tabled to the December meeting. 10D, action on resolution R 11-1-21, a resolution appropriating the necessary funds for the operation of the government and administration of the Village of Ashwaubenon for the year 2022 and levying taxes on taxable property in the Village of Ashwaubenon. Before we start, I would just like to mention that our levy went up. We had a reassessment on the residential side of the village properties. Our levy went up, but I just wanted people to be aware that our mill rate, if this passes tonight, we will hopefully add 4 positions. Our mill rate is $4.78 per thousand. That's pretty reasonable for a full-service municipality such as what we are. Because 64 cents of our levy, or our mill rate, goes to pay the referendum projects. So $4.78 per thousand is the lowest since 2012. So that's almost 10 years. Staff did a great job. Department heads, again, thank you all for everything that you put, all your efforts into this budget. So I think it's a good budget. So thank you. Okay, Joel, now.
Not a whole lot to add. Obviously, the budget that is before you tonight is the same budget that was adopted and approved at the Finance and Personnel Joint Committee with the Village Board. Again, as Mary had described, our overall levy is proposed to be increasing just under 2.6% at 2.58%. However, because of the increased and equalized value and the revaluation, our overall tax rate is decreasing. Not talking mill rate, but tax rate rounded per $1,000 of assessed value. We're going from $5.79 per $1,000 of assessed value to $5.42. So it is a fairly substantial reduction to the tune of about 6.5% on our overall mill rate. As Mary had described, the budget does include the provision for additional positions. Two of those positions would be full-time, permanent full-time positions, one being an operator laborer in our Public Works Department to help accommodate for the future growth that the village is seeing in regards to operational needs, whether it's garbage, refuse, and recycling pickup in the new residential areas, or just the increasing demand for snow and ice control operations, as well as some other issues and challenges that we're facing in just making sure we're allocating labor appropriately for stormwater management purposes. The other position that we're adding is in this budget is a media and communication specialist. This person will be predominantly responsible for doing all the telecommunication coordination, audiovisual needs, and things of that nature for not only village board meetings, but all of our committee meetings, our social media, our website, and then also for various departmental needs as well. And then finally, the other two positions are part-time positions in public safety, geared towards a paid on-premise firefighter paramedic that will help alleviate some of the stress and demands that our public safety department has. As you know, being a multidisciplined department, oftentimes our road cars are burdened with having to perform paramedic and EMS duties. So having these paid on-premise individuals there will help alleviate some of that so that we can maintain a higher number of road cars conducting police work throughout a general shift. So with that, if there are any questions on the budget, again, this is essentially the budget that was adopted at Finance and Personnel a couple weeks back. And I think all the staff would be welcome to answer any questions if you have any tonight. Thank you.
I'd just like to make the comment that I would make the statement that actually with the mill rate going down, we're actually seeing improved services to the village of Ashwaubenon with the added staff and what's been going on. So commend the staff and everything that's been going on here, the village. So I just want it to be noted that the mill rate's gone down, but yet we're able to continue the level of service or actually improve the level of service within the village, which I think is an extremely positive thing.
I agree with you, Jay. In essence, we put the infrastructure in. We need to maintain our facilities. We need to maintain our operations. We need to maintain our personnel to make sure that we take care of what we've done. And I think we've done a great job in the past boards. And with that, I'd like to thank staff for putting the budget together in a very informative and succinct manner. And with that, unless there's any other discussion, I'd make a motion to approve the resolution as presented, R11-1-21.
And I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve Resolution R11-1-21. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Thank you again, staff. Excellent job. Okay, 10E, Representative Dave Steffen is here. He has a proposal that he put out a couple of weeks ago about the Stadium District Board, and he asked to come before the village board to discuss it with us. So could you state your name and address for the record?
Absolutely. David Steffen, 715 Olive Tree Court, Village of Howard. So first of all, thank you, President Kardowski, for, we had a discussion and you were more than willing to allow me to have this opportunity to address the board as a whole. And it's an honor to be back here at the Village Hall. My very first interaction with government was with the Village Hall when I got hired as a lifeguard at Ashwaubenon in 1988, as I was finishing up my high school career at Ashwaubenon High School and then continuing through college. So I've been engaged in government here in Ashwaubenon for quite some time. I also want to congratulate you on passing the budget. I wish our budget passage time in Madison went as smoothly as yours, but that shows a great stewardship that you have all had. As President Kardowski had mentioned a few weeks ago, first week in November, I had released to the public and public only a proposal relating to the closure of the operational responsibilities of the Stadium District, reassigning its responsibilities, and third, making a very large return of overpayment of the resources that are at the Stadium District to the public primarily, and then other entities as well. And so to understand a bit about that, first, have to really go back to the beginning of this whole thing, which is in 1999 and 2000. So in 1999, the Green Bay Packers met with the state legislature, a couple of its leaders, and to essentially communicate that they were in a situation that within 5 years they would be financially insolvent. No reserve, losing $8 million every year, and by being in that situation, they would be eligible for having their franchise taken or having to look at other options for relocating. So the seriousness of the situation couldn't have been any more dire for the, obviously not only for the Packers, but for the community at large. And that set in motion a series of decisions relating to the legislation that was passed in the first week of May of 2020, and the referendum that occurred in September, not 2020, 2000, and the referendum which passed in 2000 as well. And for this issue, I feel a special amount of connection as well as responsibility to this issue. I was hired the week after this became law by the Green Bay Packers to oversee the effort relating to the referendum campaign. And so I was involved in those discussions with the leadership, both at the executive committee level of the Packers as well as their front staff, the community leaders in the area, the legislators, the governor, the mayors. And so there are very few people who have that direct personal involvement that I had, and with that, some history and connection. And so that has been part of the reason behind some of this, is because I feel like I have some understanding in the law as it's written, and the historic legislative intent that exists indicates that my proposal is pointing in the right direction. And so my proposal, as mentioned, is to close the Stadium District, make those reassignments of resources, and return money to various entities, $45 million to the taxpayers of Brown County, as well as making investments in small businesses, and other elements are part of it. But the biggest part is, do people believe that the Stadium District is ready for closure. And as I included in the information I provided to the village board this afternoon was the original statutory language that relates to it. And the purpose of the stadium district is quite clear, was in the intent, was in the debate, was in the communication to the public, was for the development of Lambeau Field in 2000, the $295 million public investment to bring that stadium to a place where it would be financially sustainable for the future. And that mission is fully accomplished. The Green Bay Packers are now in the top 5 on just about every metric in terms of finances for for a professional football team. The NFL itself is the most profitable of all the professional sports franchises. We are blessed to have them. I grew up 6 blocks from Lambeau Field, and I'm so thankful to have grown up in this community, have Green Bay Packers be a part of it. And one of the greatest honors of my life was to work with them, for them, and ultimately benefit the community in the way I have. But the legislation was clear in terms of its purpose, which was to create the stadium district to be an overseeing entity for 3 specific purposes. 1, administer the 0.5% sales tax. 2, oversee the construction project that occurred between 2001 through 2003, and pay off the loan. All 3 of those concluded in 2015. So for the last 6 years, the organization has continued to exist, but is one that is operating without true mission. And just like Milton Friedman, the famous economist, Nobel Peace Prize recipient, said that there is nothing so permanent as a temporary government program. And in state law, when you have an organization that has fulfilled its purpose, it's in particular at state and federal level, it should close. If not, it should seek reapproval from the body that created it to define its new purpose. What it does not have the opportunity to do is to redefine itself, reimagine its future. I want to now be this type of group. I want to be this entity. That's not why we create these things. They serve a purpose. If they fulfill it, they should hang their mission accomplished banner and be done. And so for that is the primary reason, but it's not the only one. 2, that entity is, the Packers have indicated they want to renegotiate a lease. And I certainly, they're a party to the lease, and that makes sense. I think that having the renter and the owner of the rental property being the 2 parties that are negotiating that make the most sense. And 3rd, there is an opportunity to return a large sum of money to the people. That organization is sitting on $81 million of public money. And if there is going to be an opportunity to give one last opportunity to give that money back to the people, this is it. And so that's why I'm fighting for this. And if you'll remember, I made this run once before as relates to the excess sales tax money, $17.3 million. And at that time, I had that money go directly to the municipalities and the county, and of course, the village of Ashwaubenon received that. We had a very nice ceremony here for that process, but this is yet another opportunity. So in addition to there being the situation where the stadium district has completed its purpose, and the Packers have discussed with the stadium board that they would like to start this renegotiation of the lease, the 3rd part is that the one and only executive director of that organization, Patrick Webb, is planning on retiring next year. So you all of a sudden have a confluence of situations that are occurring, some that are statutory, some that are kind of common situations where a landlord and an owner and a renter are the ones who negotiate new leases. And 3rd, you just have a personnel issue. And so those are the reasons why I believe that this is good public policy, and I know that there may be some differences of opinion on this, but again, it's something that I feel I have a unique situation and background on, and felt it important to bring this forward in this public fashion. To make it clear, I have not introduced this to the legislature yet. I have spent the last month receiving comments and inputs from the public, and it has been wonderful because several of them are going to be incorporated in the bill that will be introduced in December. So those are the primary things I wanted to communicate, and more than anything, I wanted to listen and hear from you and answering questions that my frequently asked question document that I provided this afternoon to each of you. If I didn't cover it, if anything requires clarification, above all, I want to make sure that you have the information as to what I'm trying to do versus perhaps interpreting. So with that, President, thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments, Dave. The one thing that I would like to share with the board, I did get an email this afternoon from Ted Pampern. When you talk about history, he was the original, I believe, the original treasurer of the Stadium District Board, and he emailed me, and he said, I would like to go on record opposing the elimination of the Lambeau Field Stadium District Board before the closing date on 2031. The Stadium District still has work to be done on behalf of the residents of Brown County. Charter member and retired treasurer, Ted Pampern. So he, like I said, he wanted to go on record for that. When you talk about history, I believe Steve Kabacki was also here at that time, and I think Steve has some history on it. And also, if the board has any questions, Keith Lucius, who is our appointee on the Stadium District Board, and Pat Webb, who is the director, are in the audience if you have any questions for them.
Well, I've not heard anyone in favor of this effort. In essence, we had some visionaries in Brown County when that referendum was approved. Ashwaubenon was a leader at that particular point in time. I think Ted was a leader in putting this together with other visionaries in Brown County, other elected officials. And I think this would be premature to dissolve the Stadium District at this particular point in time. I think there's plenty of other work that needs to be done. I think this was a plan that was put together without input from a lot of other entities as we go forward. With that being said, we received some information this afternoon, and we have not had the opportunity to go through that information. So with that, my comments at this particular point in time are going to be preliminary and based on the information I do have, but I'd have to say that the maintenance of that facility was a joint effort on the part of not only the Packers, but the shareholders and the government and the citizens of Brown County. And we have to be extremely careful that we do not take the dollars away from the Stadium District prematurely and have other financial issues at a later point in time. I think this needs to be studied significantly more than what has been studied at this particular point in time. And I would think that this effort at this particular point in time, I'm very skeptical of and suspect. This was a joint cooperative effort, and joint cooperative efforts require consensus by all parties, and I don't view that we're going to be having consensus at this particular point in time. I don't think it's ready for closure at this particular point in time, and the reassignment of responsibilities is also a red herring at this point in time. Who's going to be responsible for maintenance and other activities? The unforeseen. You know, I would kind of put this in the same category as of the village of Ashwaubenon taking our undesignated surplus and spending it or giving it away and not having anything to fall back on at a later point in time. And so before we prematurely take any efforts on this part of dissolving the Stadium District, there's a lot more questions that need to be answered. And like I said, we only received this information late this afternoon. And so at this particular point in time, I don't see a reason to dissolve the district with additional work that needs to be done by all parties.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Anybody else have any comments?
Well, a little bit of information that I got on it, you know, it's like, why are we taking away something that is not broke? The Packers back in '99, as we all lived through that era when they rebuilt the stadium, it was a touch and go thing. There was no second plan to create what they did create. They came a long way. They created a district here in Ashwaubenon called Titletown. All these things joined, and the future of where they're going, I think this program that you're presenting is not feasible to keep this progress going that the Packers are doing. I listened to your introductory to this when you proposed this. I mean, is $600 going to make everybody rich? I think it's not a great sum of money to give back to each household to worry about. And as Steve mentioned, what worries me the most is the maintenance. You know, they got a shrine there that needs a lot of maintenance. If they had so much money to spend, why are they selling shareholder packages again for $300 a pop? You know, that's all going back into the construction and the modernizing of the stadium, which has to be done just like our own personal properties. So I think what the board has done on this has been excellent in the way they kept this progress going to keep the place as a running example of what an NFL can do in the northern part of the country here, where, you know, it's still known as the frozen tundra. I don't think any other program or any other stadium has any type of title like that. So naturally, it needs a lot of maintenance. It's cold here. It's already getting cold this year. So I along with Steve, I definitely am not for this announcement whatsoever. I think what the stadium board done, I think it's been great. It's been going on for a number of years, and it's been very successful. So my opinion is keep it like it is. Don't fix something that's not broke.
Just so I'm clear, your questions were, they were rhetorical, right? You were not asking for a response to any of those?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'd like to add that I think one of the things that we have to be really focused on, the Green Bay area, there's been a tremendous amount of business investment made to the Green Bay area because of the Green Bay Packers. And it is being done because of the facility that it is. I mean, it is definitely a top 20 facility within the United States. There's no doubt. You hear it over and over again, how great this facility is. A lot of businesses have invested in Brown County, even beyond Brown County. You can even go down to the Appleton area and businesses that are investing down there because of that asset that is up here. It is so critical to keep that asset at that high level right now. And right now, the Stadium District appears to be doing that. And that is what is happening. And we cannot turn our backs on those businesses that have actually invested all of that money into Ashwaubenon, for example, and all of a sudden it starts to deteriorate, for example, like in Oakland, California. All of a sudden Oakland has to put in money and their city council saying, nope, we're not going to do that. So you disband this group, the Stadium District group. Now you're relying on some governments, some city governments, to then have to get that money to invest. And those taxpayers are going to say, yeah, no, we don't want to do that. At least we have an entity in place here that'll get us through 2030. And I feel it's done a great job up to this point, and I also feel that it's on us to protect the investment of all those businesses that are here because of it.
I would agree with Steve. Getting this information as late as we did, it was hard to digest it all, for one thing, so I would like to have more time to look at it more carefully. And then I was wondering if Keith, Lucius, and Pat Webb, if you guys are here, if you have anything you'd like to share at this time to clarify things. I'm just wondering where all the numbers came from and who decided how money was going to be distributed, you know, so much here, so much here, so much here. If that was done by a group of people, if that was done strictly through your office, Dave, or how those numbers came about that are presented here.
Okay, so that's a question for me?
Yes, please.
Those were determinations made by me. And I put it out as a draft, and specifically to just put some numbers out there, what do people think? And so that is the way I developed it, and the survey has received a tremendous amount of response, several hundred. And over 60% of the people have indicated their support, 31% opposed, 8% undecided. So, but the numbers were put out there as a placeholder, if you will, because again, this is not a final draft, but my purpose was to, okay, here are some specific things I think it should go to in general. One being the taxpayers, and so that one was received the highest amount, and the rest are just put out there as placeholders for the public to consider.
So there was no discussion with the stadium board as far as getting these numbers together? It was something that you came up with the research and things that you had done?
So the stadium district likely has no interest in closing itself. In fact, they have created documents on how to reimagine themselves. And I believe they're completely misinterpreting the law. They believe that the law, and that's the reason why I included it with that, and I also have an entire booklet of the legislative intent relating to this issue. They believe that they now have the right to be operating for the purpose of economic development, tourism, unemployment. But if you read the actual language, which I provided you each a copy of, the specific citation, it is for the development of that stadium for the $300 million project, which then in turn benefits unemployment, tourism, economic development. So that's been flipped on its head. So at the baseline of this whole thing is, what is the role of government? Is it, if you don't know about it and you think it's doing a good job, you just keep it, continue to fund it? You know, there is no other organization in the entire state that has that amount of money, that amount of taxing authority, and has zero accountability directly to the people. None. Not a single organization. So your thoughts on it working well and all those things, we can have some debate on that. But there is no other entity like this that exists in the state of Wisconsin that has that kind of money, able to generate millions of dollars through a taxing authority with no oversight from the people, elected officials. And so, you know, that's something that's more principled for me. And if it has satisfied its statutory authority, it should conclude. Now, if you love it, then it should be a different piece of legislation that says, we love our stadium district and we want it to continue forever. Here's its redefined mission. And find a legislator to author it. But unless you have that, you have an entity that's operating outside of its statutory mission. And so that's where we're at.
What's the difference between the stadium district here and the Southeast Wisconsin Professional Baseball Park District?
This was specifically designed for only one purpose. That one is a separate entity. That's a 5-county operation. Mm-hmm. And the language is completely different in that arrangement than it was for this one. I don't have a lot of great knowledge on that, other than I know it was a 5-county operation versus a single county,
But I would state that it appears to be exactly the same type of a district. So when you say that this is unique, yeah, probably if you get down into the details of the language, I'm sure there's going to be uniqueness to the stadium district. But I would put forward that it's trying to accomplish the same thing that's being done in the Milwaukee counties.
Okay. Did anybody want to hear from Pat Webb or Keith Lucius?
I would like to hear their comments, yes, that would be my suggestion.
If If you want to just state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, I'm Patrick Webb, 401 North Washington Street, Green Bay, Wisconsin. I can address a few of the things, some of it, obviously I didn't negotiate the lease. Wasn't involved in the legislation. But clearly, starting with the referendum question, it talked about creating a sales tax for the purpose related to a football stadium facility. It didn't say for construction. It didn't say for anything else. It said for a football stadium facility. And then the Packers put out a brochure to go along with the referendum. It talked about why are taxpayers asked to pay for maintenance of a Lambeau field. So right in the language of the definition of what the binding referendum would do, it talked about taxpayers being asked to fund maintenance. Then the legislation was passed, and we were asked to put away maintenance funds starting at $3.4 million a year, increasing by 2 to 3%, depending on what kind of, whether it was labor or non-labor, increasing by that to the year 2031. And we had to get a certification from the Department of Revenue that we had put away sufficient amount of money prior to us turning off the sales tax. So we are doing, all this money is really money that the Packers negotiated as part of the legislation, and obviously it's all that language of the $3.4 million escalating all the way to 2031 is in the lease, the three-party lease between Green Bay, the district, and that. So we don't have abundance of money just sitting there that isn't dedicated to a purpose for what the Packers want or what the Packers had previously negotiated. So every year we calculate the amount that's due from this fund and combine it with the ticket tax and remit it to the team as prescribed under the legislation and the lease. As far as working outside the scope of being economic development, we were fortunate that the Packers needed something way back in 2005 or 6, and we were able to negotiate with them an amendment to the lease that allowed us to capture the ticket tax on special events. Previously, this would have all gone into the maintenance fund, but we were able to negotiate that money could be used for the district purposes. So we created an economic development fund out of that rather than just have it go to the team. So if that's working outside the scope, I guess we took advantage of a situation and we decided that it would be better to be used in the community than just used for maintenance of the stadium. So if we hadn't negotiated that would have been used strictly in the O&M fund. We would not have had it. We would not have been able to contribute to all the things we've contributed in this community. The Rush Center scoreboard, bringing the WIA tournament here, helping out at the Botanical Gardens, helping out at the museum, helping out at the Ashwaubenon Community Center. All those things came about because of our ability to negotiate a change in the lease with the team. So if that's outside of our scope, okay, but I think it's all been put to good use. As far as the stadium district goes, I didn't know I had announced my retirement yet, but I guess it was announced tonight, but I have agreed to stay on at least until June, if not longer, just as we work through a transition. But I have not announced my retirement. But I wouldn't you know, just from a district standpoint, or personal standpoint, I should say, I wouldn't mind going out as the only, the only executive director of the stadium district. That would be fine with me, but I don't think you can take money dedicated and required by the lease and the legislation to be used in specific purposes and distribute that to the taxpayers of all the municipalities here, and then take that burden of who's going to make the Packers whole for their required maintenance that's detailed in both the lease and the legislation, unless you impose a tax on the city of Green Bay to do that. So in essence, which in my mind, what we'd be doing is taxing the citizens of Green Bay to give a refund to Ashwaubenon, De Pere, and Howard. And I don't know how you sell something like that. So, but those are my comments. I have not seen a fiscal bureau or reference bureau write-up on this. I'm just going by what I understand this legislation to be. But I think there, you know, you could get rid of the district, and Green Bay and the Packers could handle this like they have in the past. But the money has to go with the change in ownership, because this money is the, you know, under the lease and the legislation, it has specific purposes for it. I'll answer any questions if you want.
Well, if I could just say a word. So the lease is the guiding document as it relates to the finances between the Packers. So the Packers are not impacted by us for a single penny as a result of this legislation, not a single penny. The lease has to be changed in 338 places where it says Stadium District, and it would have to be adjusted to the city of Green Bay. So, and as it relates to the differences, remember the law is still oversees the majority of what would be happening as it relates to this whole thing, because it relates to the Stadium District. The lease would still be in place. So the lease would still exist. It would just be transferring responsibility to the city of Green Bay. So I just wanted to make that part clear, that it relates to the Green Bay Packers. They are not in any way harmed financially. So if continued taxpayer support of the entity is a priority, that still remains as a part of the lease.
We're getting a little too deep into the weeds of this subject, I believe, so let's just keep it at a higher level. Keith, did you want to make any comments? I think you can understand where our board feels, Dave?
Yes, and more than anything, I wanted to be available to just want to let you know that what is out there is a proposed draft only, and I wanted to be available to answer questions, you know, in case there wasn't an understanding. Right. And so, but it sounds like that's, the questions part isn't where things are coming, so.
Right. Did you want to say anything, Keith?
Sure, I'll make a quick comment. Please. Keith Lucius, 2946 Foxford Drive, Ashwaubenon. The thing that concerns me most about this proposal is the money that the Representative Stefan is proposing giving back. We live in a time where we see municipalities and governmental units having unfunded or underfunded maintenance plans. Here we have a situation where we have a funded maintenance plan. So let's take that funded maintenance plan, just give it back to the taxpayers and have an unfunded maintenance plan. That's what this proposal does. We've done everything right. We've protected one of our most valuable assets and have reserves to cover that going forward. Why would we break that apart and now create an unfunded? If you give that money away, you're going to have to get that money from somewhere. And now it's going to be subject to the process of budgeting and everything else and weighted against every other thing in the Green Bay budget, and you're going to lose all your control. Representative Stefan talked about there's no election on that board. It's all appointed. You're right. You guys appointed me to be your representative. Mary and I have talked about this, the board and my role there regularly to try and get that communication. If you want more communication, by all means, I'm willing to come at any time. But that is how the elected work. When I look at the other board members, there are elected officials on the board. But we're working under the guidance of that's our asset, we need to maintain it and live up to that lease. And maybe the lease doesn't have to change with the Packers, and the Packers aren't hurt financially, but that money's got to come from somewhere. So if you propose giving it back to the community, it's going to be, you give it back with one hand and take it back with the other, because that money still has to be paid. You've got to maintain that. And I think the point that Mr. Krieger made about what has happened in other NFL cities when they don't maintain their stadiums, the teams leave.
Right.
We've got to maintain this stadium. I voted for this referendum. I want that stadium maintained. That's why I'm on that board. It's important to this community. It's important to Ashwaubenon. It's important to Brown County. And giving that money away and having an unfunded maintenance program is the wrong move.
Thank you.
Thanks, Keith. I think that's well said and to the point. We don't want to go into the unknown and the reassignment of responsibilities. Unfortunately, I think at points in time, an apolitical body is better than a political body. And this is starting to become a political football, or could be, and I don't want to go there. I think you guys have done a great job. You've managed it well.
Yeah.
And this does not have my support in any fashion or format.
Okay. Are we done with comments, questions? Are we moving on? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Appreciate your time. I hope you all have a very happy Thanksgiving.
You too.
You also. Thank you. Okay, 10F, action on committee appointments. We have 2 alternates for the Ethics Board. We have Joanne Euclid and John Fenner. We need them confirmed, please.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second to confirm those 2 appointments. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. 10G, discussion and possible action on the process to fill the vacancy for the office of trustee for wards 1 and 2. Joel.
Okay, thank you, Madam President. As you remember, last month, Trustee Allison Williams, who represents wards 1 and 2, announced her resignation because she is moving out of her trustee district into another district in the community. As a result of that, her effective date of resignation was yesterday, November 22nd. So we now have a present vacancy on our board. Based on the timeline of, or tenure left remaining on her position, there are a couple of options that the board could take in order to fill that vacancy. First, you could certainly leave the seat vacant for the remainder of the term, although her term does expire April 18th of 2023. So there's a pretty substantial amount of time between now and then. Second, you could hold a special election for the vacancy, which would be held at the general election in April of 2022. So pardon my date in there, should be April 5th, 2022. And the reason for that is that the vacancy became available prior to December 1st of this year, which allows candidates to pull papers during that candidacy period between December 1st and the first week in January. The other option would be to appoint a resident who resides in the district to complete the remainder of that term. That would be consistent with what had been done previously, last year in particular, where we had 3 individual seats that were vacated. Ultimately, it's the board's decision to determine the method of which it would like to fill that role. If you do choose the latter of the position, generally speaking, what we would do is we'd post or publish a notice in the paper, provide an opportunity for the individuals to apply for the position. So have a basic application, of which those applicants could then be presented to the village board for consideration at whichever meeting you feel comfortable with. The most recent or the soonest meeting would be upcoming on December 14th. I know in talking with a few of you as a result of this vacancy and maybe some of your experiences with the appointment process previously, there might be some feedback that you would like to discuss amongst your peers as it relates to the process. So with that, I'll answer any questions or certainly entertain some discussion on the matter.
As you know, the north side of the board is all new from appointments that were needed because of reasons of people leaving. I think that process worked real well. I wouldn't mind seeing put a notice in the paper, have that done by January 1st so that it gets on the agenda for the January board meeting so that we appoint somebody. You're looking at 5 months of nobody here on this wards 1 and 2. I believe we should have as many people at this board as possible when we do have a board meeting. we're already short one. If somebody has a vacation, whatever their appointment might be, and they're not here, that makes it real small to make some good decisions. So my answer is get somebody here as soon as possible and do it by appointing them.
I would agree with Gary, that since I've been here, which is almost 17 years now, that is what we've always done whenever there's been a vacancy, is to, put it out there in the paper that there's an opening and appoint somebody. We have a lot of big decisions coming up, so I agree, we need as many people here as we can get.
I would agree that we should appoint someone. I think that's a good idea. It's, to have an election and to wait till a term ends probably is not a good choice.
Too long.
Get somebody in here. But I would request that we look at the process. I like part of it, but I would like to see like maybe a special meeting for interviews of the candidates. We hold the interviews, we maybe make a decision at the end of that, and then it goes to the next village board with a recommendation, or maybe it is approved already, and gives that person a chance to maybe meet with Mary, meet with someone prior to them actually being put on the board and starting that night. So they have a chance to figure out how it works, look at the agenda packet, get some information so they feel comfortable sitting up there at their first meeting rather than getting appointed and all of a sudden sitting at the board and looking at a packet that they've never seen before. So having some time, I guess, between the appointment and when they actually sit down and serve as a trustee, just to give them a chance to get their feet under them a little bit.
And I would agree with Tracy that I know when I came on, granted, I wasn't even here, and it was a challenge. And especially we got thrown right in and had to decide on Joel. I think if we would, my proposal would be that we have a special village board meeting on the 11th of January for this purpose only, is to select that individual. And then we turn around and then they, get them onto the board. Then that way we're ready for them to be making decisions on the 25th.
Is that giving us enough time to making sure we got our best possible candidates in front of us?
That's the only challenge. I don't disagree with you, Chris, on that. Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge, but
I don't know, if you let it go out 2 months, 3 months, you're still going to get the same people.
Right.
There's only so many people interested in this anymore.
no.
And
My
we,
thing is get it filled.
the only problem is we're over the holidays too,
Yeah.
and that's,
Holidays, they still think.
There's a lot of people that
did I hear about
that
humbug over
have
there?
that thought in their mind and they gotta, I don't know, they've got to talk themselves into doing it. It's not an easy decision to make.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, if it goes into the paper, that we need someone in that position, and they have all the way until January 11th, that's,
Yep.
that's 6 weeks. That's quite a time for them to be able to come in. I'm fine with either way, do the January 11th, or I'm fine with the January meeting and point them right.
All right, let's move to approve that then.
Yeah, if I could just add some detail to that, because I think where you're going is, so if we publish this position, this vacancy in the appointment process beginning next week, we can tie the period of application, the application period to the same period that candidates would need to pull papers if they were to pull papers, right? So December 1st is kind of when we're going to start to accept applications for the appointment. We would close that period. I believe it would be, and Chris, please confirm, Tuesday, January 4th. At the end of that day, that business day would be the end of day when people would normally turn in papers. So we would close the application period January 4th. That would give us time administratively to package everything together to get to you so that you can review the materials prior to January 11th, and then you can make your appointment on the 11th.
Sounds good.
I like
Move
that.
to approve what you just said.
I'll second that.
There, let's
Okay,
move
we
on.
have a motion and a second to close the application period on January 4th, 2022, and then we will have the interview the interview period on January 11, 2022, to select the candidate. Everybody understands? Any more questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. 10H, review and action regarding solid waste management services agreement. Mr. Martin.
Yes, before you tonight is the new solid waste management services agreement that would take effect in 2022. Very similar to the agreement that we've been working under since 2002 with Brown County Port and Resource Recovery. All of the Green Bay area communities are part of this agreement, along with a number of the communities in Winnebago County and Outagamie County. All of the landfill cost and recycling cost are split by all of those communities in those counties. Reason for the new agreement, it's at its agreement end. There's a new landfill. It is now Brown County's turn to construct and operate a landfill. So that the agreement takes into consideration the increase in cost with the new landfill coming on board in January of 2022. What it also does is it lays out over the past number of years, a rate stabilization fund has been created by Brown County Port and Resource Recovery to assist in dampening this rate over the 5 years. It's going to take about $8 a ton to construct the landfill. The rate stabilization fund is going to be used to trim that increase down to $1.50 per year over that 5-year time frame. So it's using up that money in order to ramp up that rate increase. With that, for 2022, the rate would be going from $43.84 a ton to $47.82 a ton. To the village of Ashwaubenon, be roughly, with the tonnage we provide in solid waste each year, be around $19,900. The offsetting balance on this, I think we discussed at budget time, is the recycling market has taken a 180-degree turn from 2 years ago. For about 4 years, we were paying anywhere from about $10 a ton to upwards of $25 a ton for our recyclables to get rid of them. The market is now, we're getting $81 a ton as of this past month for our recyclables. You don't budget for the lowest of the lows, you don't budget for the highest of the highs. If you take a $20 per ton revenue stream from that, we're at about $35,000 to $39,000 a year to the positive. So the net impact is favorable to the village. We're at a point in time where we can take advantage of that situation. All that being said, over the past year and a half, the public works directors in the area have been reviewing and going through this agreement, and then the corporation councils, not only Brown County, but the city of Green Bay, city of De Pere, Tony here at Ashwaubenon, a number of the other communities have reviewed the agreement to make sure that's in good shape and before you tonight for approval. Went to Public Works and Protection at the beginning of the month, and they forwarded it to you tonight for review and approval.
Okay, any questions?
Doug, the only question I got, your estimated annual tonnage from 2021 to through 2026 still remains at 85,000 ton. With the increase, well, not, with the new developments we got going around here, there's 2 going on right now. Is that number going to stay the same?
They don't anticipate it to stay the same. They kept it to be a conservative estimate. This agreement gets reviewed each year, and the adjustments are made to the rate based on what the actual tonnages are coming in. So they wanted to make sure that they weren't over projecting, so they maintained a flat rate, because for the first couple of years there's going to be some tonnage going to the Outagamie County landfill. So there'll be 2 operations happening, as one is closing and one is fully opening up. So they wanted to make sure all of those costs and the tonnage associated with them stayed relatively constant. They feel there's going to be more, so that's only going to be a benefit, but they didn't want to undershoot.
Okay, understanding it then. All right, like Doug said, it went through the Public Works and Protection Group. There's no other questions. I'll move to
I
approve.
have one quick question.
I need a second.
I'm sorry.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Comments?
Thank you. On the rate stabilization fund, Doug, are they going to be including that? I didn't see it in the next agreement. Are they going to do something similar to that in the future? Because I think that was a really nice process to put in and keep the fees low that we're going to benefit from next year.
That is an item that's still being looked into. With this rate also, there's money set aside into the future closure of the landfill. There's money set aside so that it isn't a huge balloon payment that's necessary at one time. So the rate stabilization fund will get used, and then it'll get reevaluated at that time to see where the rates are, if it can handle, if there is some excess that could go into it. The rates aren't set to be able to contribute to that fund. It's if there is some excess from operations that can go into that is how it's funded. And they've had that over the past years, that they've been able to build that up for this very purpose. So the answer to your question is it likely will continue, but they don't want to increase the rates substantially to get to that end.
Okay, so they'll maybe look at it in the future and decide that the profit is there or the ability is there to start a rate stabilization fund again?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the solid waste management service agreement. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. 10I, review and action with respect to an additional ARPA-funded request, residential water meter purchase. Mr. Martin.
Just coming out of budget, and you just saw ARPA-funded requests in the budget process. We did have one in for residential water meter purchases, but the meter purchases weren't going to be necessary until I want to say March, April of next year. So there were going to be additional ARPA-funded purchases coming up for your viewing later. What we had happened last week, the week of the 16th, we received word from the meter supplier, and we verified it with some of the other utilities that we work with that use not only this style of meter, the meters in general. There's a price increase that's going to be taking effect beginning of December, which would impact on a pallet of meter, which is 385 residential meters. It'd be about a $10,000 price increase due to the cost increase of some of the computer chips in them. The meter companies reached out to all of us saying they will, lock in rates at the December rate if we can order them prior to that time. So that's why this is before you tonight. Whole reasoning behind this, and with some of the ARPA funding, is in 2020, we did next to no residential meter water replacements because we weren't going into houses in 2020. We now have to build our inventory back up, so we're doing a balloon replacement, if you will, of those, requesting one pallet of meters to get us back in line with our meter replacement that normally we'd be doing it ahead of time, or requesting this now so that we can take advantage of the price that we have right now and not the price increase that's forthcoming.
It's a no-brainer.
Doug, are we going to have to take the whole order that we're putting in and then store it someplace, or how's that going to work?
Yeah, a pallet of meters is about 4 feet by 6 feet tall. Mm-hmm. We have a cage, we call it back in the garage, where those meters are stored. We can take upwards of about 3 pallets of meters at that location. So they would be stored on site here until we use them.
Okay. My concern is we just didn't have, floor space to put them. So you do, well, good.
Okay,
All right, the money saving is a no-brainer. I'll move to approve as presented.
Now second it.
we have a motion and a second to purchase the water meters for $91,630 with ARPA funds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 10J, consider, discuss, act on ordinance O11-1-21, amending Ashwaubenon Municipal Code, sections 2-7-739, 2-7-740, and 2-7-741 regarding election wards, polling places, and trustee districts. Tony.
All right, the attached proposed ordinance is basically to finalize our portion of the redistricting process, the second step that's required by the village. Essentially, the attached ordinance revises various sections in our municipal code concerning elections that is consistent with the resolution that was passed last month and adopted by the board as far as the creation and redesignating of wards and creating polling places. So essentially, this ordinance just formalizes and completes our second step in the redistricting process that's required.
Okay.
So Tony, just to clarify in my situation, I just fill out my term then
That's correct.
for the 7th and 8th? Okay.
Correct.
Okay, I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve ordinance O11-1-21. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 10K, consider, discuss, act on resolution R 11-2-21 regarding salaries and compensation for elected officials, village president, and/or village trustee. Tony.
As part of the budget process, there is the ability prior to the term beginning for the local elected office where the board, if they wishes to modify the salary and compensation, must take action prior to that term beginning or basically before taking out papers for that position. This resolution was drafted to either allow any changes that would have occurred throughout the budget process, and also looking back historically, while there has been action with respect to establishing salaries, we weren't able to find anything that kind of formalizes what the salary is. And so really what the proposed resolution is to create a formal resolution and document that effectively establishes what the salary is for these elected positions. And so by even adopting this resolution as it's drafted with the current salary, it basically establishes a record that can be used for modification going forward or at present, whatever the board may wish to do.
Okay. Anybody like to make a motion?
I'd make a motion to approve resolution R 11-2-21 regarding salaries and compensation for elected officials, village president, and/or village trustees.
Yeah, $1.80.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve resolution number R 11-2-21. Any more discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. 10L, village tax collection information. Joel, you're going to be Greg tonight, I guess.
I am Greg tonight. Thank you, Madam President. As you're aware, the village will begin collecting property taxes again for the first time in a number of years. As you know, Brown County is reluctantly willing to provide that service for a cost now, and we elected to internalize that process here. So statutorily, we will be handling the first payment, so first installment or full payment, essentially from when the point of tax bills are mailed out to property owners until January 31st of 2022. After January 31st, and there is a grace period, which I'll describe in a moment, any future second installments or late payments will need to be issued at the county treasurer's office. Both of those provisions are consistent with the statutes. So generally, the local municipality collects the first installment or full payment prior to January 31st, and then any late payments or second installments are always made at the county courthouse. So we are going to be consistent from the statutory provisions. We are putting together, in fact, we actually launched it recently, a section on our homepage that talks about taxes. So if individuals go to ashwaubenon.gov/taxes, they can get a full gamut of information as to how to make their payments, where to make their payments, and the timing and schedule for the receiving of those payments as well. We'll be collecting taxes only here at Village Hall, so our address is indicated there. In talking with our finance staff, we felt that it was appropriate to have collection hours during what our normal business hours would be, so 8 to 4:30, Monday through Friday, again, generally that second week in December when the tax bills are mailed until the end of January. We will not plan to be open beyond those standard hours, however. I know there are some municipalities that may flex their hours. We are not planning to do that. We are also not planning on collecting on Saturdays or Sundays as a result of that either. To note, we have a few holidays that are observed in December and in January, so we will plan to be closed during those days. A couple of years ago, the IRS changed some of their tax laws, and so as a result of those changes, it's not as imperative for individuals to pay their property taxes on or before December 31st. So that date isn't always as critical as it maybe had been in the past. So we are planning on being closed on Friday, December 31st, as a result of the January 1st holiday. We want to make note that no cash refunds for any check or credit card payments will be given. So if somebody overpays, we will not be giving cash refunds at the point of counter, right? So that they'll have to go through a formal refunding process with a check before they get their refund. Individuals that want to pay their taxes and have a receipt mailed to them, they will need to provide a stamped address, self-addressed stamped envelope to receive that receipt. Now, if they're in office here and they're making their payment, they can get a receipt printed at the point of sale. But if they mail in their payment or use the drop box, then they need to provide some type of self-addressed stamped envelope for us to mail that back. And then we are working with our staff to provide a 24-hour drop box available for them as well. So if individuals want to just stop in, drop their payment in the vestibule, and we'll have a secure payment option for that as well. At this point, we have not negotiated any utilization of any financial institutions outside of Village Hall to collect taxes. That has been done in the past, whether it's through a bank or a credit union. We've not gone about seeking those agreements. We think that we can accommodate and handle the amount of traffic and flow as a result of that. We are planning on hiring some former employees that have done tax collection work, both for us and for Brown County, and they've agreed to that. So we will have some part-time employees for basically mid-December through January to assist in that effort. It should be noted that January 31st is the technical last day for when that first installment or full payment is due. However, there is a 5-day grace period business day-wise, and so we will be taking collections through Monday, February 7th. After that, however, everything goes back. There will be some complications to this. Obviously, banks and escrow institutions, they'll be sending payments directly to us. Sometimes those payments are off. Either they're short or they are over the amount that is due. In those particular situations, we will have refund policies and notice requirements to ensure that individuals have made their full payment. Beyond that, the other challenge, obviously, is if we have individuals that own properties in multiple taxing jurisdictions, they may in fact send us a check for all of their taxable parcels. And so we will be working through reconciling those payments with those other taxing jurisdictions so that we don't get into kind of a messy situation where we're issuing refunds to the individual, but keeping partial payment for us. So we'll be trying to make it as streamlined as we possibly can for the individual paying their taxes. With that, we wanted to present this to the board primarily just to get your feedback if there are any concerns or challenges with the plan that is being presented, and we can certainly make those modifications prior to tax collection in December. So with that, I'll answer any questions.
Greg, is this just a 1 year? Greg.
Yeah, I am Greg tonight too. Yeah.
I didn't think I goofed up. Is this a 1 year deal?
So the arrangement with the county is not a 1 year deal. This is something that would, in all likelihood, be perpetual in nature. So it would be annual. Okay. Yep. Now the process and some of the hours and the timing and things like that, we can certainly modify those. And certainly if we find that it would be very advantageous for us or our taxpayers to have another third party like a financial institution collecting taxes off-site, we would certainly entertain that as well.
Okay. All right. All right, I think it's done well. I don't have a problem with what I'm looking at.
If they pay by credit card, Joel, is there a charge for that?
There is a processing fee, so they'd actually pay it directly through the county's website. I would have to pull that up. I don't know that number off the top of my head, but there is a percentage charge to that.
So if they came in here, can they pay by credit card?
They can pay by credit card here as well, and there's
Will
a
you have
service charge as well.
Service charge as well, okay.
The best thing to do, quite honestly, is an electronic check. So it's 50 cents to process an electronic check for your property taxes. So it's less expensive to do an electronic check than it would be to mail it with a U.S. stamp.
The reason why we opted to collect our taxes ourselves is because with the county charge, it would be well over $13,000 that we would have had to pay the county. So we decided to collect them ourselves, so. Any other questions? Otherwise, it's just
You need an
information.
approval on this?
No, it's just information.
Okay, run on to the next one.
Okay, thank you. 10M, distribution of state-required housing fee and housing affordability reports. Here.
This is the annual distribution of both the housing fee and housing affordability reports as mandated by Wisconsin Act 243 that was passed back in 2017. So every year compile this report based upon the previous year's data. It's for your information. It's something that'll be useful as we develop the comprehensive plan update starting next year.
Okay.
It's basically a summary that's all that has occurred over the last year for all practical purposes, right?
Correct. This would actually be for 2020, but right.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Nice job on the report, Aaron. It looks good.
Thank you.
Okay, again, this is information only. Any other comments? Okay, thank you. Moving on to 10N, consider, discuss, act on Village of Ashwaubenon strategic plan. Joel.
Okay, thank you, Madam President. I'm not going to certainly go through this word for word. We've seen this document probably 3 or 4 times, right, Steve? One of the key components to the proposed draft strategic plan was some modifications to the SMART action items within each of the targeted initiatives. So what staff has done is basically put together a table, has narrowed the number of SMART action items for each key initiative, identified a responsible or a number of parties responsible, departments responsible for completing that SMART action item, and then a time frame. And we kept the time frame relatively open-ended, somewhat loose, if you will, to a point of 1 year from implementation, year 2 or 3 from implementation, year 3 or 4 from implementation, to provide some flexibility so that the staff can have adequate time to complete these projects. Again, what we wanted to do from the onset of this is really kind of strategic planning light, as I called it, where we kind of focus on our mission, our vision, our core values, and those strategic directives that we'd like to achieve. And then each year kind of put together a list of action items to try to accomplish for that given year. Again, we narrowed the focus of those action items because I think there was some concern that we had too many. So we tried to focus on things that we thought that were certainly achievable over the next 3 to 4 years. So with that, I'll answer any questions you have and certainly request an action for adoption.
Thanks for working really hard on this, Joel. It's been a journey. You did a great job.
First one is always the most difficult one, and I think you've done a very good job here. Do you have any metrics lined up behind these different, initiatives here? I mean, I recognize some of them are going to be challenging, but it would be nice to have a measurement, especially even for the department heads, to be able to say, are we doing something better? Or are we doing, are we not?
Right. I think what we tried to focus on those action items is it's either yes or no, right? It's either completed or it's not, so that there wasn't a whole lot of measuring between there. There's a few things that are considered like ongoing that we will need to establish some metrics as we refine the scope of that project. One example, and I just pulled it up here by random, but under the directive number 2, secure public health and safety, Under the first key initiative, there's an action item that talks about evaluating the information on public safety services and demands to ensure quality and responsive goals are being met. So we need to refine that a little bit more to establish what those metrics will be. And then from there, we can kind of target those.
Okay. Just past experiences is that in starting this, it's some survey monkeys out to different parts of, maybe out to residents and things like that to give you a baseline so that you have something to measure against could be helpful. The other thing that I would suggest, and I have mentioned this to Greg, is to get the operational budget aligned to the strategic plan so that we can see where the actual dollars that are in the operational budget, how are they being spent against the operational plan, or the operational plan, how those are being going against these different directives in that. I think that's extremely helpful because it gives you the view from how is the service being spent. For example, in the chief's case, okay, well, it's money now, here's where it's all going to. That's, what we should be seeing the results from. So this is all great. It's all great. And I think it's going to be a document that's really going to help us and, going forward and the people in the village to move the village constantly forward.
Okay.
And I would make a motion to accept the strategic plan as presented.
Second.
I have a few questions on it. Just looking at, it's a great document, and you did a good job, and I just have a couple questions on some of the key initiatives. If you go to Directive 1, the quality of life, I think the first one, key initiative 3 talks about cultural recreation opportunities for the community and the responsibilities of Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Department. I was wondering if we should put the PAC in there also, the Performing Arts Center, because they're cultural. They're going to be doing a lot of those types of things. And I realize that's a joint venture between the village and the school district, but I just think they can really have some impact on that one, and maybe as well as the second one, 1.32. They may have an impact on that as well.
Mm-hmm. Certainly can do that.
Okay. Then going to Directive 2, which is public security, public safety, and health. Key initiative number 2. One of the smart action items in there has to do with fire prevention, education in schools. What I was wondering is if we could add same kind of verbiage for bicycle and pedestrian safety in schools and in our community. Right now, the department does have a very well-run bike rodeo that Officer Dunlap has done for many years. I think the Parks and Recreation Department has maybe been involved in that a little bit. But maybe adding that and then adding in the responsibility section, Parks and Recreation in there as well, because I think that educational component for bike and ped could be done both by public safety and by Parks and Recreation. And then going to key initiative number 3 in that same grouping, there's a lot of acronyms in there like NIMS and FEMA and EMS, and I'm just wondering if this document is for public. I would assume public can see this as well. Maybe to define some of those. I mean, I know most of them, but maybe some other people don't. So just to explain to them and have the full, writing of what that acronym stands for. And then the other question, and you might have answered this before, Chief, but what is the mobile field force, actually? I think I asked that before, and either I don't remember the answer, or I didn't get it at the time.
Mobile field force is really about crowd control. Okay. When we have incidents like where we need to maintain safety within the community, we have a joint task force with Brown County that does mobile field force and goes out into those situations where we have, possibly riots and things like that and help with crowd control. That's really what their purpose is.
Okay. So I don't know if that needs to be defined any more in there, but, just it's very short on what it means. And then the only other thing, Directive 6, With the provide effective communication, I just wanted to say that I really enjoy the manager's minute. It's a really nice newsletter. I think it's well done and like to see that continue. And I also like the idea of something similar for a public newsletter. I think that's a really good idea as well. And even using kind of similar format that you've been using, Joel, for the manager's minute, I think would be a good thing to communicate with our residents. Something short, sweet, and that they can really get just the key points out of.
Sure.
So, but those are my only comments on the, I guess, several comments on the document.
And we can certainly add, if it's agreeable to the board, we can add those smart action items that were identified, or the responsible parties that were talked about with the cultural events, the bicycle and pedestrian thing. I'm sure that's something that would be agreeable to the staff to include. The acronyms isn't easy. We can just basically spell out the acronyms so that people are aware of what it is. And then we can take just that, add some clarity to that mobile field force so they know that it's for crowd control purposes.
Okay.
I'll amend my motion to include them.
The second amend. Did the person who second the motion also agree to the amendment?
Go.
Okay.
Jesus.
Okay. Any more comments, questions? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Number 11, items for next agenda. We will have the rezoning for the Bel Air Ridge Road property. Anything else anybody has, give a call to the office. Number 12, the December Village Board meeting is on December 14th at 6 o'clock, not 6:30. Number 13, closed session items. During the meeting, the Village Board of the Village of Ashwaubenon may convene into closed session pursuant to A, Wisconsin Statute Section 19.85, Parent 1, Parent E, to consider, discuss, act on deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business regarding tax parcel VA-41-4-E 789 Armed Forces Drive, and regarding the TIF Developers Performance Agreement with GenCap Dana Ashwaubenon 75 LLC for tax parcel VA-56-4-1, where competitive or bargaining reasons require closed session. B, Wisconsin Statute Section 1985, Parent 1, Parent E, to consider, discuss, act on deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business regarding collective bargaining negotiations with Ashwaubenon Public Safety Association or any public employee where competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. C, Wisconsin Statute Section 19.85, Parent 1, Parent C, to consider, discuss, act on the employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data regarding collective bargaining negotiations with Ashwaubenon Public Safety Association or of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. The village board may thereafter reconvene into open session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute Section 19.85, Parent 2, to report the results of the closed session and consider the balance of the agenda. I will entertain a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
President Kardasky,
Yes.
Trustee Paul,
Yes.
Trustee Kubacki,
Yes.
Trustee Zerbal,
Yes.
Trustee Krieger,
Yes.
and Trustee Flukie.
Yes.
Okay, we're in closed session. Thank you.
This conference is no longer being recorded.